Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the 5G New Thinking project, which we've heard a little bit about already. And specifically, actually, I'm going to focus on the Orkney testbed network building as part of that project. So 5G New Thinking is a DCMS 5G testbeds and trials supported. And the overarching aim of the project is really to empower communities to kind of help themselves in the struggle for connectivity in hard to reach remote rural locations. And we're aiming to do this in a number of ways, but one of the key things that we're looking to do is to develop what we're calling a toolkit, a 5G rural network toolkit, which basically aims to educate and inform communities as to how they may help themselves with connectivity, and also allows them to interact and try out various aspects of connectivity, from radio frequency coverage planning and various things like that, but also business models as well, because the business case is actually one of the key things that is one of the key challenges for rural connectivity. We have a number of partners, 18 partners in total. Cisco is the lead partner and Strathclyde is the principal partner. A number of partners there, which I won't go into in great detail. CloudNet is the partner in Orkney, on the ground in Orkney, who we're working with. And actually, I'm planning on, if the technology allows, I'm planning to hand over to Greg at the end of my presentation, Greg from CloudNet in Orkney, and he'll tell you a bit about the Orkney build that we've just been doing. The Scotland 5G Centre, who we've heard from, Paul spoke a bit earlier. The Scotland 5G Centre is a partner in the project, and the Wave 1 Rural project that we're doing here at Loch Lomond is very much linked to the 5G New Thinking project and the testbed in Orkney that we're currently building. So the toolkit, well, the toolkit, is actually going to have to cover a lot of things. It's a challenging thing. It's a big deal trying to sort of get connectivity into any place. But it ranges from the kind of understanding what the community wants to do, what are the use cases, what kind of connectivity is required. Is it fixed wireless access or fixed access, whether it's wireless or not? Is it fixed access? Is it mobile access? Is there some kind of specific industry or agri-tech related aspect to it? What about the business models and the organizational structures and all of that kind of stuff that needs to be taken into account? How are you going to fund and finance the venture? How are you going to set up the organization to actually do the thing? And then there's all the technology stuff, the radios and the backhaul and the fibers and all that stuff that comes into play as well, and various other things. So it's actually quite a tall order, quite a challenging, wide range of things that need to be taken into account. So, some of the things that you need to do when you're building a kind of private or any kind of 5G network, but a private 5G network, which is kind of what communities, what we're kind of looking at here. You do need to work out, what are your aims and ambitions? What kind of connectivity and use cases do you need? As I've said, the business models, the legals, the radio spectrum. The network design, of course, is a key thing. But then there's also other things. Once you've got to buy stuff, you've got to procure stuff. Procurement is a difficult thing to do. Procurement is particularly in these days. One of the things that we've found is that we have had challenges to do with Brexit and importing stuff into the UK now. But also COVID. The whole global supply chain that I'm sure we've all heard of. Various issues with all manner of goods, around the world getting manufactured and getting hold of things has been quite difficult. And then there's building and maintenance, building of the network and some of the challenges in doing that in very remote island locations is what I'm hoping that Greg will be able to tell us a little bit about. So anyway, the Orkney testbed. So it's at the very north of the UK. Orkney is a kind of group of islands at the north of the UK. Hopefully everyone knows that. And we're basically building a testbed which comprises 2 clusters. One is a cluster in the north of Orkney. So you can kind of see them there, the kind of yellow highlighted regions up at the north. There's 2 islands there that are going to get coverage. And then down at the southwest, you can see another region, a yellow region there, where we're going to, that's what we call cluster 2. So cluster 1 is the north one and cluster 2 is the south one. And, you know, those clusters we've chosen for a number of reasons. One is that they have poor connectivity. So that's a clear reason for choosing those. But the other one is they are difficult to reach. And, you know, sometimes they say, oh, well, they're kind of difficult to reach. You know, so, well, that's exactly the point. Because they're difficult to reach, that makes them good candidates for developing this kind of testbed stuff. So what kind of design challenges do we have? Well, the network design, what we've, you know, we kind of start with a notion of what kind of coverage area we want, and then we kind of run some RF, radio frequency simulations. And then we kind of choose some optimal sites, what we think are the best sites for providing coverage. But the problem then is that the optimal sites are quite often not the sites that you're actually able to get access to. You know, there's a whole load of reasons why you might not be able to access a site. And so we need to have local knowledge about what sites are feasible, what aren't. Some of it's quite simple. There isn't an access road, or it's just difficult to get to the top of that hill, you know, because there's no access or something. Or it could actually be that, well, you know what, the landowner is away and difficult to reach, or even the landowner is just not up for, you know, engaging. There could be a whole load of reasons. So you've got to go around a kind of iterative process. Eventually, you do have a list of provisional sites. And you try and then sort of work out what's the backhaul solution to those sites going to look like, and you've got the same sort of thing, local knowledge and all that comes into it. And that's the key thing, local knowledge. That's a theme that hopefully will come through in this presentation, but local knowledge is a key theme for all of this stuff. Eventually you get to the point, we see the red circle there, we've got a design, that's wonderful, we've got a design, so that's brilliant. Now we've got to go and find out who these landowners actually are. That's not easy, especially in rural areas. Sometimes you can't just search. You can't just search for title deeds and find them. Sometimes it's actually quite difficult to identify who a landowner is. Then you've got to negotiate with the landowner and hope that they're quite willing to engage. And then you've got the usual local authority planning consent process to go through. And you do all that, and if it all works well, you come out at the bottom on the left hand, the green circle, the site is confirmed, everything's good, we've got the thumbs up and we're ready to go. Or on the right hand green circle, it might be back to the drawing board, and it is back to the drawing board. You've got to choose a new site, and not only choose a new site, by choosing another site for that part of the network, it does quite often have a knock-on effect on all the other sites that you've chosen, because it can have a knock-on effect on the overall coverage that you're trying to achieve. So it's actually very challenging. But anyway, you go through all of that and you get to you come out the other end, hopefully with a network design, which is more likely to be a compromise, you know, because of all those issues. It's not going to be the best network, the best RF coverage, but it's going to be good enough. So anyway, we've got the coverage of the network design, and then we're ready to go and build. And for the most part, all of our kind of base station radios kind of look like this. Our base stations look like this. We've got you know, an antenna on the left-hand side. We've got a remote radio head from a partner company in France, and we've got the baseband unit, which consists of various sort of custom-built components and glue and management software, and the software stack again from a partner company also in France. And then that base station on the left-hand side gets kind of integrated into the overall network with the backhaul and so on. And we integrate into the network cores. And on the picture at the bottom there is actually the Cisco core that Stephen was talking about earlier. That's the Cisco core that's installed in our Technology and Innovation Centre building in Strathclyde. And that core, we intend to hook the Orkney network up to that core, and the 5G New Thinking project will be one of, if not the first project to hook up to that core. And then we aim to hook other projects up to that core going forward. So, you know, procurement, you know, I've mentioned all the kind of procurement and commissioning, you know, these are just some photographs of various bits of kit that are boxed up in the lab, ready to be shipped up to Orkney, undergoing various pieces of testing and assembly and so on. And then once we've got the network up and running, Greg's going to talk about actually the network build. So I'm kind of jumping out of order here. But once we've got the network built, we kind of have to monitor the network, and we're doing that remotely from our dashboard, which we've developed. So we can actually remotely see how the network is performing, what devices are connected to it at any one time, and so on. And that kind of allows us to well, detect any issues and even predict some issues or whatever, and hopefully head them off before they become problematic. So at this point, I do want to hand over to Greg, if Greg is there. I'm not quite sure how we do that, Derek. Are you able to just hand over to Greg and he can tell us a bit about the actual physical build in Orkney?
Hello, I'm online anyway.
Oh, hi, Greg. Hi, Greg.
Oh, hello, everybody.
So I'll hand over to you, Greg. I've got 2 slides here. You can with the pictures I think you've seen, you can tell me to advance or go back to the slides as you see as needed.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, hello, everybody. Yeah, the physical build for Orkney, for us, it's been a challenge. But I think, as Paul said in his earlier slides, we've actually can demonstrate that we can build small cells and cells in rural areas, despite the size, despite the challenges, primarily just by having a desire from the rural communities and the people who live on these islands to actually deliver these kind of solutions. So that it's a key factor in delivering small cells. And in our designs, our planning permissions, we took it upon ourselves to make sure that what we did was we designed small cell and also slimline tower solutions, so that they didn't stand out in and around the environment. They kind of blended in. So we were not talking big towers, we're talking 12-meter towers and literally about 0.5 meter in width and height. So they were very, very well designed in that respect. So as you see in the pictures here, the one with the digger is actually the site and the footprint of the tower that we're putting in there, which was 2 square meters in Papawestry. So that was a 12-meter tower there, and the tower type we used was an old Met tower. So these were used, they can go up to 80 meters. So we used those primarily because for Papawestry in particular, we don't have roll-on, roll-off ferries. So everything has to be craned on by the ship, craned on and craned off, and the limits are weight restricted. On the bottom left there, you can see the ducting and fiber runs. So through the partnership and with Faroes Telecoms, we utilized, I think, a 7-kilometer run of fiber. So we helped do this and deliver in our project 7 kilometers of fiber to actually make sure we could get to the challenging spots in Hoy. And the civil side of it there, you can just see, there you go. Literally, it's the footprint of that construction that you see in above of the Papawestry cell site. So you can see it is small. It's not looking too ugly, I suppose, in a way, but we're trying to keep it minimal for the island. Okay, David. Okay, the challenges for us. So we had to hire cranes where we could, and the cranes we were limited to, as you can see in the picture there, are 60-ton or 40-ton cranes. So we had to basically book out the entire boat to get those cranes to the islands, primarily because there's nothing else we could do. The boats couldn't carry any more capacity. They're so long. So challenging for us was actually trying to make the logistics work for it. It's trying to get these devices and things on site at the right time, but at the same time also having to take into account the bad weather, because the bad weather in Orkney, we do have microclimates, islands change, wind can turn up, rain. There's a number of challenges there that could have shut us down when we were building all of these towers. So it was quite critical that we chose it in good weather. So you can see that, and the bottom left there is actually the crane starting to lift the sections of the tower. But incidentally, that is the second crane. The first crane we got onto the island broke down. So they had to then wait a day practically to get the next crane out to lift the next part of the tower. So we were really struggling. we're all accredited riggers here, so we did the rigging and installing ourselves so that we could make sure that everything was done certified and to the right standards. So you can see that the guys are up there already trying to build the 5G cells. Again, it looks like spaghetti down there, but that's actually the racking that we did inside each of our units. So we're making sure that all the equipment was fitted and installed appropriately. The top right, you can see is one of the external CPEs that we're using. These were just put on the shelf there just to test to make sure that we were getting throughput. And at the bottom left, you can see the initial testings that we've got live there. That one there does say 91, but we have had accounts of over 170 meg on our handsets talking to these 5G radios. So it does prove locally rural communities can build 5G networks. We have it, it is being demonstrated, and it is live. So I'll hand back to David at that point, if that's okay.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, so as you heard from Greg, there are lots of challenges associated with just getting out to the islands and getting heavy equipment out there, heavy machinery out to the islands. Getting concrete out to the islands isn't even a trivial task either. But anyway, so I'll leave there, Bob, and I'll hand back to you for the next speaker.